So mixed mode buildings, what do you reckon, Lester? Are we going to be seeing more of those?
Well, I think after Atlassian, we probably will see a lot more naturally ventilated buildings and possibly mixed mode. I mean, that is, by definition, a type 3 mixed mode building, where you have air conditioning in some areas and natural ventilation in others.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a pretty brave client that doesn't install any air conditioning into any buildings. So I think by its nature, you're going to have natural ventilation and active air conditioning for the mixed mode. You know, I think with climate change, we're going to see the conditions are going to change, like more hot summers, more storm conditions and the like, which will make it challenging to have a mixed mode building. And so, will we all be in pretty hermetically sealed kind of efficient spaces in the future, maybe?
Yeah, but I still think that, the majority of the year it's going to be cool enough. It's just those peak times. And, the quantity of peak times is going to be longer for each year.
Yeah.
So you're right, you're going to need an air conditioning to overcome that in a lot of cases. But the rest of the year, if you can design a building that it does open up and breathe, and, barring the issues of noise and air pollution,
yes,
then it'd be nice to see that. Some buildings, if they're well designed, I believe can achieve that. And I guess the strategy that they proposed for Atlassian actually works very well. When you have that park zone, which is
like
naturally ventilated and it buffers the wind.
Yeah,
buffers,
yeah.
We can relieve some air into it, so it just provides a bit of a zone of buffering.
Yeah, the buffer's really important, I think, actually. When you see a lot of science fiction, about where buildings might be in the future, they're always in those kind of biodome, buffered from the extreme kind of environment.
Yeah.
There's always a theme running through them. So, yeah, buildings that with a buffer to the outside, I think, is really important.
It'd be interesting to see whether the whole issue of COVID changes the way people want to work and the tendencies, and when tenants start to move away from CBDs and then start to want to work in business parks where it's lower rise, you can walk up rather than share elevators to the 52nd floor, or whether it's hermetically sealed or whether it's more open. And of course, a building that's only 4 or 5 levels high has less of an impact from wind than a tall building.
Yeah.
Naturally ventilated buildings.
Yeah, it allows you to open the facade more
Yeah.
without the fear of those kind of high winds and the like.
Pressure differentials.
I think there's a lot of people quick to sort of, herald the death of CBD offices, but I think people still feel the need to come together socially.
Yeah.
So I think there will still be offices for a long time to come. People still want to be together and come together.
And I guess if you read the history, the 1920 pandemic, it wasn't long after that they started building taller and taller buildings in cities. And I suspect that's what's going to happen here as well. You'll move on from the pandemic and business as usual.
Yeah, people will be back on it again.
Yeah.
I think one of some of the interesting things I'm reading about the post-COVID world will be how your office needs to be an attractor to bring your workers in and be better than working at home. So, what are those kind of social provisions and the spaces for focused work where, especially people like myself with young kids at home, sometimes being at home isn't the quieter, more focused space. Maybe coming into the office could be the more quiet and focused sort of private spaces as well. So
it does ask the question of the role of the office space now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If people can work from home, they need to give them a reason to come into the office.
Yeah. Those suburban office model could be that big blue chip companies might have small offices in a number of kind of suburbs, and they virtually come together to be a big company, but they might be a collection of 10 smaller local offices.
Closer to where people live.
Yeah, and I'd love to see that because, I'd love to have an office still, but be closer to home.
Because when you think about it, having a large corporation which has multiple small offices everywhere, and it allows different people in different teams to work in different offices, but actually come together via the video conferencing.
Yeah, because that's technology like Zoom and Teams has come on so much in the last year. It's amazing. This has been a big old practice run for those kinds of methods. And there'd just be less commuting, less people on the roads, less people on the trains. I think that'd be great for everybody.
Yeah, cycle to work, walk to work, whatever else.
And as you say, those lower rise buildings are just so much more healthy in terms of natural ventilation, being able to walk up them. That could be a pretty exciting opportunity.
We're starting to see quite a bit of movement development now in smaller, lower-rise buildings down in the south of Sydney, which is quite interesting.
So here we are pulling in towards Rouse Hill Town Centre. This is an
Is this it,
incredible
really?
project. Yeah, look how much the trees. I haven't been out here for a few years, and the trees have really grown up. You can't really tell it's here. And the sky rail above us, you can see that's
the Rouse Hill station.
That's the Northwest Rail Link.
Yeah.
That was always envisaged when this was built back in 2004.
Wow.
So yeah,
Interesting to see it actually get built. It's like the old high street in the UK, isn't it?
yeah. And I think that's why I'm really drawn to it. I love that scale of high street,
human scale.
Wow. Well, like when you walk through the laneways, you'll notice how fantastically thermally comfortable they are. From all the work a young engineer did back in 2003 to make sure the sun never got in at any angles of the day, and the breeze was beautifully broken up by signage and trees and the like. So
Who's that?
yeah. Well, he went on to be a fantastically handsome and older engineer that drives a Tesla. No. That was actually a job where I first worked at the Bond for Lend-Lease.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed being in there with the architects, and such an amazing building. And this was the fruits of the labour, I guess, was this town centre.